Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, Beautiful You. I'm your host, Avantika. Today, we have a very special guest with us. Netra is a trauma informed counseling psychologist, a mental health practitioner, and a relationship expert. She has been in the field of psychology for more than 3 years.
Before we dive into this episode, you guys know I advocate for therapy all the time. Beautiful You encourages you to seek the right professional help and care for you. This is where Amaha comes in. Amaha is a mental health care organization offering scientifically driven and evidence based high quality care through therapy, psychiatry, their community support, and self care app. Whether you're dealing with anxiety, depression, or any other severe condition, Amaha has about 140 plus psychologists and psychiatrists working to support you. You can access therapy and psychiatry services online as well as in person through their centers in Bangalore, Delhi, and Mumbai. Beautiful You listeners get a special discount. Use the code BY50 to get 50% off your first session with Amaha. Just download their app. It's called Amaha, AMAHA, or visit their website to book your first session with Amaha. And if you know someone who is struggling with mental health, share the love and the discount. Let's make mental health care accessible for everyone together. Invest in your mental health. You deserve it.
Today, we are talking about Gen Z and the mental health that comes with it. People experience FOMO these days a lot. We'll be tackling a lot of social media trends and how to be more mindful in today's day and age. Welcome, Netra, to the episode podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited, looking forward to this podcast.
So, in your practice, have you noticed any specific pressures that, let's say, like particularly Gen Z faces today that maybe previous generations did?
Yeah, definitely. As you seen, there's a pattern now which has been following for this Gen Z to become aesthetics, right? To follow the maybe the dressing style, to follow the outfit, to follow with the theme on their social media, on their day-to-day life, right? Where we feel like that we need to be comfortable at our homes, where we feel like that nobody's judging us, right? Nobody's like, we don't need to put any pressure, any thoughts to ourselves, right? They have a lot of pressure to be up to the mark all the time when it comes to their body language, when it comes to their again aesthetics, when it comes to their how they are dressing up, how they are carrying themselves. A lot of scene what I've seen now that Gen Z are at their places also when they are being in a comfortable position, when they are in like homes or not doing any kind of chore or not around the people. There's like a constant pressure to act like that. There's a constant pressure to behave like that, right? Which has been they are following for so long that it certainly inhibited how they behave.
Right.
So, having said that, it's not very healthy to go ahead with this because certainly we do require that comfortable space. We do require that comfortable time with our own self where we feel like ourselves. So, not everybody, where how they are behaving is how they are actually feeling about themselves.
Right. Where do you think this pressure comes from for particularly like this generation?
Okay, so I think this pressure started. I think it's not that this is something that started recently. It started a long time back only. Gradually, how this aesthetics formulation comes in, how they carry themselves comes in. So, very in a very few minute times, following the pattern, this is something which is coming in now. So, having said that, the way people started behaving now, it is more coming from a Western culture, but they have not adapted all the Western culture as it is.
Right. Yeah.
What they did it, they actually took like a Hollywood movie theme, Western culture theme from a bit that how they showcase themselves, maybe on a social media or maybe in Hollywood, how actresses dress up or how actresses behave. They started embedded it in all their whole life now.
So what I'm hearing is that it's also a lot of influence from social media and the internet that has been ongoing. How do
Definitely.
how do this kind of pressure affect one's mental well-being?
See, hearing it, first thing, it's very sad. right? Because it is somewhere or the other affecting a lot on your mental well-being. If somebody told me, okay, Nita, you need to behave in a certain manner. You cannot behave the way you want to. You cannot speak the way you want to. You cannot act the way you want to. It's the every time unstoppable pressure on my head, on my thoughts that you need to behave in a certain manner, right? Otherwise, else, if I do not behave in a certain manner, I will not be accepted in the society then. Nobody will like me then, or maybe my image will not be that up to the mark in the society then, right? So if I carry so much of pressure on my own self on a day-to-day basis, it comes as a chronic stress then. It increases the chronic stress in your body, in your own mechanism, which is not healthy again.
Right, no, makes sense. Makes sense. And I feel like, and even with like, let's say while we're on the topic of social media, the whole thing about highlight reels, people only show up the good parts of their lives and not the bad parts. So even like that makes people feel so bad about their own lives. It also leads to loneliness because they feel like everyone's life is so happening, but there isn't, and stuff like that. What do you think are certain strategies that can be used to help someone who may be dealing with like the negative consequences of social media?
Okay, so first thing I would like to speak about that this highlight reel. We need to little understand and accept that if I am putting a reel, I am a mental health influencer. I am a mental health. I put a lot of awareness posts, reels on social media about mental health, right? That is something which I am putting it for the audience to gain little awareness and the knowledge, right?
100%.
But it does not state and it does not mean that I don't have my own bad days. I don't have my own mental health. My mental health is all time up to the mark. It never states that, right? So we need to understand little a bit that what social media is reflecting you is just the 1% of their own life. It is not something which you are able to see it is not something which you are able to get the whole idea of what their life looks like, but certainly we sometimes mistaken about to take it to get influenced that their life is so happening, their life is so like a bed of roses, my life is not. No one's life is like a kind of a bed of roses at any point of time. Everybody has like a ups and downs in their own life and their own way, in their own way, and they deal with their own way. So acceptance this when you use the social media just for the entertainment purpose, and to every time when you realize that this is not affecting my mental health or taking toll on my mental health, is certainly a barrier now. It's certainly a boundary which we need to maintain. And what we can do and how we can do is basically it's a very good reflective exercise which I also give my clients, and I also tell like everybody to go like to do this exercise. And I also practice this exercise. It's basically 4 4 4. That for 4 seconds you need to breathe in, for 4 seconds you need to hold your breath, and then 4 seconds you need to exhale, breathe out. Exercise has a very important role and a good part to basically calm your nervous system down, to make you feel relaxed.
Yeah. Correct. So, with social media as well, there is, because of the reels and everything, you feel like you're missing out on a lot of things. So, the concept of fear of missing out, FOMO, has been so incredibly prevalent in today's generation. Honestly, I personally have dealt with that a lot. I have seen my peers dealing with that a lot. So, like, how does one manage FOMO and be able to find contentment in their own lives?
Now, some very important aspect to figure out, to acknowledge that what you have inside, what you have on a daily basis, what do you have in your life. So over here I prefer to go with the gratitude journaling, right? It is something which is utmost important to do, maybe by whenever you're sleeping at night, whenever going to bed at night, just count 3 things you're thankful for today, right? 3 things which you feel like you're thankful to, maybe somebody, to your own self, to maybe the universe around you, any 3 things, right? And that gives you the feeling of satisfaction and start giving you the feeling of contentment, because it's very important it's easy to count that what you have which I don't have in my life. it's easy to reflect on that. But it's certainly little difficult to count on that what I do have in my life. But that's very important. I also need to see that what do I have in my life, what I carry, what is there in my pocket, what are the things where I am grateful for.
Right. Of course, yeah.
That is something that is very important to count on.
So gratitude and counting your blessings is like one way
Yes.
to deal with FOMO,
Yes.
that's for sure. Fair enough, because like I do see, I mean, for example, like the one thing that came up right now off the top of my head is when people move abroad, right? They post a lot of reels and posts and stories about partying and seeing different places, and we only see that, oh my god, this is so good. But when you're actually abroad, like my brother was abroad, and I know what he dealt with because it was sometimes it's a struggle to like day to day struggle because if you're paying your own bills and everything, you have to like work every day, and it's like you're living paycheck to paycheck. You deal with so much loneliness and everything.
Yes.
And there is so much crime happening against international students as well, so you have to be really careful. So there are so many bad things to it, but we only see the good things. And it's so easy for us to feel like, oh my god, they are having the time of their life, but I'm not. So yeah, counting your blessings. I personally have a journal that my best friend got me for my birthday, and I have to write like every day in the morning 3 things that I'm grateful for, and at night what did I learn today and everything. It's like a 5 minute activity, but it helps me get myself aligned and makes myself be in my power basically.
Yes.
Yeah. You're a mental health influencer as well as a counseling psychologist for more than 3 years. So, in your own personal experience, which certain groups of people from the community feel embarrassed to seek help, or they are too scared to like ask?
Okay. So I over here I do feel like that what age group is certainly still little embarrassed to seek mental health professional is little more on the post adult age. Is me basically the adult post adult when I come across that 40 plus 40 plus is the basically age group people who are still little embarrassed because in their own head, their own setup, mental health concerns are still having little stigma based. Mental health concerns are little still having that they're not able to adapt what exactly the mental health concern, mental health illness looks like, right? But on compared to that, now generation Gen Z, when we are talking about millennials, if we talk about, right, they are more open towards mental health. They are more open towards working on their mental health, and they're more open towards talking more about their mental health. And if there anybody who gone through any concerns or maybe seeking any kind of professional help, they are more open towards sharing and putting the awareness across now because I think they are more they also get to know why this is happening and how important it is. So
Right.
there's a difference between those two ages.
So, what can be done in these cases to make encourage them to seek help?
um 40 plus, first thing that in the at the home environment, speak more about mental health, right? Have more informal discussions about mental health, have more informal talk about mental health, that why it is important, why one should do more about it, right? Ask how's your mental health little on the regular aspect, right? Maybe little reiterate that if one has little mental health concerns, then what can be done, what can be the consequences if you don't seek any professional help, right? So these are the small things on the day-to-day basis where we can start ahead with to reduce that stigma, and also telling them bar everyday basis, reiterating it to them that if you do seek the professional, it's not something which is a bad thing
Of course, yeah,
or
yeah,
a shameful thing.
100%, yeah. And there's another, like, I feel like there's another group that finds it very hard to seek help. Is the people living in rural areas. There's a lot of awareness that's being spread in urban areas. That's for so sure. So like in the metropolitan cities, you see a lot of mental health professionals coming up. Students are taking up psychology as their major as well. But when you go to like rural areas or even semi-urban areas, um, mental health is still sort of a myth, and people are like, oh, it's all in your head, stuff like that. So, yeah, in those cases, what do you? I mean, I know that there are a lot of campaigns, and the government is trying to like spread awareness. There are different organizations working towards awareness for these people. But like, apart from that, what do you think we can do as a part of this generation to spread awareness?
Yes, very rightly said that rural areas and semi-urban areas is still the places where the awareness has not increased yet,
Yeah.
when awareness has not reached yet. So yes, government has running a lot of campaigns. There are a lot of organizations which are running a lot of community mental health awareness programs where they send the psychologists to conduct sessions to talk about mental health, to psychoeducate the people around there, right? So that is how that is happening on the community level. That is happening on the group to group level, which organizations are taking part of it, and the government is also taking part of it. On the personal level, on the as a professional in psychology, what we can do is also to spread little more awareness. Maybe you can visit, not every day, maybe not every week also, but doable is to visit once in 15 days. Visit some areas. I think rather than putting focus on to increase and to reach the awareness on every aspect around your locality to everywhere, right? Start with one place. Choose one place, maybe which is close to your place, close to your home, close to your maybe working space. Choose one, right? And try to build awareness there, right? Maybe you can conduct number of sessions with them, maybe you can conduct number of group therapies with them, maybe you can conduct psychoeducation programs with them on the individual level, right? And on a small cohort levels,
Right.
then you can go ahead with. Rather than choosing a wide range ki main, maybe in 1 month or maybe twice a month I'll go to two different places, then the impact can be little lesser because the stigma is still there. Stigma is on the top right now, so we need our services, we need our if I say actions to be over the top of that stigma on that place.
Makes sense. Makes sense. 100%. Yeah. I also wanted to ask, because you have been creating a lot of content on social media, and you see like in the last, let's say, like 5 to 7 years, we have seen a big surge in mental health professionals who are trying to create content, or they're just mental health. Those are not even like um psychologists, but they are just creating content regarding mental health. Right? There are a lot of influencers who are coming in. How do you, when there is so much information floating around on the internet, how do you know some information is authentic and some is not? Because I have seen personally that the psychology says, and then they have some extremely stupid fact.
Right.
They just put it on psychology, but that's not accurate. That's not authentic at all. So how do you differentiate and understand that, oh, this is the piece of information that is authentic versus something that is not?
Yes. Now, as again, everything has their own pros and cons. So, social media comes with a lot of cons when it comes with pros as well, right? So, over here, putting the awareness also comes with a lot of cons, as you mentioned, because there are a lot of posts, a lot of reels which I also come across, these are not very good to hear about, and it claimed that coming from the psychologist or coming from the psychology says point of view, right? Which is not very healthy to consume as well on individual basis. So what I tell everybody who is watching my reels, there in the caption, the line also, and on my mostly on my every reel. And I also tell this to people, and I believe and I practice this also. Whatever the reel regarding the mental health, regarding the information, any information based reel which you are searching, which you are coming across, right? Do not believe in very first hand. Do
Yeah.
not believe in my reel at also very first hand. I every time tell this, do your research around that line, whatever you are hearing, read little more about it on the Google, read little more from the authentic sources. You can ask from the authentic sources. Maybe you have your own therapist, you can recheck with your own therapist, right? Go and little research. If you feel now that is something which is okay, then do believe and practice it. Do not practice just blindsided.
100% agreed. Yeah. I feel like also there are certain people who claim to be psychologists, but their information, it's basically their reels are constructed in a way that gets the most reels, right? The most reels. So it's a clickbait kind of a thing. It's really messed up because I feel really sad because people are believing those things, right? I have seen reels where it's like, "Science, you have ADHD," and these are extremely basic things that are not even related to ADHD, but people are like, oh my god, I relate to that. And they end up sharing it to like five more people, and then that's how the algorithm like works and everything. Like it's just a game for some people on social media. That's for sure. So fair enough. I love what we have shared so far. I wanted to talk about because you are a psychologist, a professional from our generation, so you are able to understand relationships and what is going on in today's world with the dating apps and situationships and whatnot way better. So I just wanted to dwell a little bit into what it feels like, the importance of self and like having an identity of your own while being in a romantic relationship, because quite often than not, people tend to like forget a part of them, or they get so dependent on their partner that they lose a touch with themselves and stuff. So that's all of that. And yeah, in today's, like, I don't know, for some reason, I've seen a very misconstrued version of relationships. People are like, the whole concept of red flag and green flag, and people are like, I mean, it's sometimes I feel like it's ridiculous. Like sometimes these are not even flaws of a person. These are just a characteristics. You can't just simply put it in a red flag or a green flag kind of a thing. But yeah, considering all of that, to start off with, I wanted to ask, um, what are like how important is it to form boundaries and express one's needs in a relationship, and how does one do that?
Now, first foremost thing, that why and how our self is important in the relationship, right? So this is something which is very important for us to understand, that this is, if I this is me, right? Then every relationship around me, be it romantic, be it with my friends, my families, professionally, acquaintance, neighborhood, is something which is associated with me only. So if my self is something which is not strong enough, right? So every relationship will not be my strong part of it then.
Right.
Because in the center it's me only. So if I am strong, my relationship will be somewhere or the other stronger than strong then. But if I am not strong, my relationship will not be strong at any point of time. Then there, if because if I am not strong, I certainly or the other seek that emptiness which I have inside me from my relationships, where there's a codependency, emotional dependency, physical dependency can happen, right? So first important thing in every relationship, if you want to work on the relationship, first work on your own self. Your 50% of a relationship will be sorted then and there only, right? One thing. Another thing, which is that yes, definitely nowadays we have associated relationship with two different category, red or green. There's no, or per se black or white. There's no gray part, which is completely not fair. This is completely not the reality, the truth of the reality, because most of the time relationship will be on the gray part, not
Right.
on the rare, like black or white, right? The relationship will be on the gray part, as not every day we have like a good day, not every day we have like a kind of a very roses of bed kind of a day. We do have like a bad days to our own self, same way the relationship has the bad days, and that's okay, that's good, that's normal, right? I every time tell my clients, because I also have the expertise in the relationship, so there are a lot of cases which I got from the relationship point of view, that one thing which is very important to understand, that if you are having conflict in the relationship, then it means that your relationship is going in a right manner, right? And is one of the very important intimacy is basically the conflict intimacy.
Okay. Yeah. What is
This
that?
is very important.
What is conflict?
Conflict intimacy is basically, yes, see, conflict intimacy is that when you're having the argument, right, first thing, having the argument is important, right? Another thing on top of it, that when you're having the argument, how you are dealing with that argument, How
Right.
you're solving that argument, right, is basically where your relationship grows,
Makes sense.
is how your relationship grows. So that conflict intimacy is also something which is very important over there. There are definitely certainly red flags which we need to curb. There are only three red flags. There should be no domestic violence, no emotional abuse, and no physical abuse. These are the three red flags which we need to keep in mind. Apart from that, everything is workable. Everything is not on the, maybe situation wise, maybe on the context manner, maybe on the state manner. It depends different to different, right?
Right.
But putting across the in a tableau from red and green is also not something which is all right.
No, no, it is. Everyone is like, oh, that's a red flag. It's just, oh my God. Every certain characteristic of a person has been categorized into red or green at this point. Every. So, yeah, that is a little insane. But I
I
think,
also over here I also feel like most importantly, rather than searching red flags in the relationship, first search the red flags in your own behavior, which can be hamper your behavior to your own self. Maybe not taking care of yourself can be the red flag now. Maybe not being emotionally not providing yourself the emotional comfort to yourself can be the red flag, right? So first identify what kind of red flags I do have in my own self, to work ahead on that. Around the relationship red flag automatically will convert to the green flags then.
I agree. Yeah. So there are being in a relationship also comes with a lot of sacrifice. But there has to be a certain way on how you do it, right? There are certain beliefs that you shouldn't be like sacrificing on. Um, and yeah, I mean, you don't want to get lost while being in a relationship. So what are certain like misconceptions, let's say, that comes across about self-sacrifice in relationship, and how do we address it?
Now, self sacrificing is a very huge word over here, right? It is not only about or also about self sacrificing, right? It is, I may put it across as the adjustments to the relationship, right? Certainly, when two people are coming across, one person and one person coming across, working as a team towards one particular journey, one particular goal, right? Both the parties, both the people have the different kind of personality. Both are basically two individuals where the individual differences also arises and comes, right? They may agree to one thing, they may not agree to one thing. That's all right, right? How you come on the same page, maybe okay, I'll put it over here like that maybe hypothetically, if I love watching movie, or maybe watching rom-com movies, right? Or maybe my partner hypothetically may love watching adventure, horror, or maybe crime, which is completely opposite to what my interests look like, right? Then we can come on the same page, right? That either one one weekend we'll together watch rom-com, or maybe another weekend we'll watch whatever horror, crime, adventure, right? One way. Another way, maybe we can find a different activity to do all together. Maybe watching movies is not our cup of tea,
Yeah.
right? Maybe I just like my own solo time watching movie, and he like his own solo time watching movie. We don't need to collaborate over there. Then maybe we go ahead, maybe for a walk or to cook together, to have a different experience or a quality time. Not watching movie is like a kind of a, like a mandatory thing then over here.
Right, right, right. Makes sense.
So there, identifying it, finding the common goal, finding the common ground is something important. It also not comes with the sacrificing them.
100%. Agree. I wanted to talk about like the new this generation's dating stuff that is going on with the dating apps and everything. The term ghosting has been very up and coming, and apparently almost everyone has dealt with it, or they've either ghosted or being the ghostee. So how do you think this concept of ghosting affects one's mental health and their approach to future relationships?
Now, this ghosting is little a sensitive aspect, definitely yes, because the person who is being ghosted or the person who is ghosting both are somewhere or the other getting affected in certainly different ways, right?
Yeah.
So the person who is ghosting has certainly different maybe experiences, different kind of ways, perceptions, right? That they don't want to deal with it. Sometimes it gets freeze also, that I don't know what to how to go how to take things, right? Certainly. So that freeze moment is also something which comes from sometimes a stress response from our body, right? So thereby also that the person who is ghosting is certainly getting affected a lot, right? And definitely the person who got ghosted from somebody is also certainly affecting a lot from on their own mental health level, because first thing, you don't expect that way, right? Certainly it's not a healthy and appropriate behavior also to receive from anybody for that matter, right? But yes, how do we work ahead upon that is like to make a boundaries then, right? As you're talking about on the dating apps, right? So on dating apps, if you speak to one person maybe once, twice, or thrice for that matter, right? Maintaining a boundary that when I am entering into any sort of dating apps or when I'm speaking to any person, I need to maintain boundaries to not first, uh, on the very first hand, to get attached too much, right? And in what perception I am coming onto the dating apps. Why I want to first understand why I want to come on the dating app. Is this something I am getting bored? That's why it's a kind of a entertainment source of me, or I want to seek a serious relationship. That's why I'm looking forward for somebody on the dating app. Understand why you want to come on the dating app.
Yeah.
That can give you a lot of good, a lot of like a healthy responses there.
Makes sense. Makes sense. How do you think it, changes people's perception towards their future relationships? Like, because it feels like, I mean, if I'm being ghosted, let's say I got ghosted like thrice after being a little invested in the other person, I might feel very like done with it. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this ever again. I would be very closed off the relationships because of that, because you get tired of it, right? You get hurt because of it, and you don't want to go through it. So how does like one tackle that? Because sometimes it does get tiring to be out there. The whole because of dating apps. Because personally, I have been on a dating app, so I know how it works. It's like you have this illusion that you have so many options, so people don't want to like stick with one person and go through the bad and the good times. So how does one like have a healthier approach to relationships? Uh,
Yes. So first thing that because yes, if you have like a lot of experiences of ghosting in the past, your perception changes to the future sense. Then your perception changes to how you perceive things coming in your future, because there is a lot of conditioning already happened around that line in the past, right? So
yeah,
now what you can do is first that see any kind of healthy relationship does not build on a very first hand. Any relationship to build, to grow, requires a lot of time, requires a lot of effort, requires a lot of, again, the time to put into for that effort, right? So, changing perception, the way you come across, if you come across any kind of healthy relationship for that matter, right? From other person, how you attach to the other person effort, your effort can deliberately change that conditioning, can
right.
deliberately counter that conditioning, right? And this perception, because this is not a permanent perception, it only happened because of the conditioning you made that perception, right? So putting the different stimulus all together into that conditioning can alter your conditioning.
How do you how do you think the modern dating apps have altered the expectations of commitment?
Yeah, so what I do feel like that dating app certainly diminishes the expectation of commitment, because first thing, you know that you have a lot of options, right? Another thing, that second im- pointer is that you take these dating app as a source of entertainment for yourself,
Yeah.
right? So uh, crossing one partner to another, like second to third, third to fourth, is a kind of a habit and a pattern also you make it, which certainly diminish a lot of commitment. And there's also fear of commitment certainly sometime arises then, that you fear to commit because you know that in a dating app nobody is coming also to seeing the healthy relationship. So that's the perception which you have already built when you enter the dating app.
How does like one navigate through it? Because sometimes you get a little scared of commitment as well. So how would one be able to like get over their fear of commitment?
I think over here, seeking the professional help is something which is important. That first thing, that why this a fear is coming.
Right.
For what reason that fear is coming? Definitely, there's something happened in the past. Then only this fear is coming, or maybe something happened in the childhood. That's why the fear is coming, or maybe that child, that person, that adult has seen around his environment or her environment. That's why the fear of commitment is coming. So, why that fear of commitment is coming? Why you have been so fearful, you're so afraid of basically going into a any kind of committed relationship, entering into committed relationship, right? So that is that why to understand is something which is very important. And post that, to understand that what we can do now to change that conditioning, to change that perception, to reduce that fear is something you can do with the professional help only.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah. People do need to like be more open about seeking professional help even when it comes to just relationships. If you don't need to
Yeah,
have a particular disorder to seek help, it could literally just be for your day-to-day activities in your everyday life, honestly. So
definitely.
yeah, I wanted to. So we are coming towards an end of the episode, but before we do that, I wanted to talk about situationships for a bit. What do you think is the psychological impact of these undefined relationships, and how will one be able to navigate through them?
See, as now, if you see from last recently a lot of time, the relationship has altered a lot,
Yeah.
right? The dynamics and the phases of relationship has changed a lot, right? There's a lot of different new relationships which has come across now. The idea of new relationship which has come across. One is also the situationship, right? So situationship is that at first there's no commitment of the relationship, right? Situationship is also there's no name to the relationship, right? So certainly that I think has impact a lot on the mental health on both the parties, that because you are in the relationship still you cannot name the relationship,
Right.
you are in the relationship still you cannot open about the relationship, you cannot talk up, you can definitely talk to your friend, your close one, but you cannot talk to people around you on like a extensive circle. You cannot talk about your relationship. I think that comes with a lot of barriers now, right? Certainly, if you also see that situationship does not last for a very long period of time. Situationships are certainly for a very short period of time relationship, right? Because that when it comes with a lot of barriers, right? And there's no name to the relationship, there's no name to that companionship, right? Then that occurs a lot of difficulty. That comes with a lot of difficulty to grow that relationship,
Makes
right?
sense.
But definitely towards the also one thing which I would like to mention, that everybody has their own choice, everybody has their own preference. So there's no right type of relationship, there's no wrong type of relationship, right? Every relationship that person is entering towards is the right for them if they feel so. If I feel that this type of relationship, this part of relationship is right for me, as not hampering me on my personal level, is right for me.
Right. Makes sense.
But at the same time, if I do feel like that any relationship is hampering me a little, that any relationship is having a difficulty on my personal self, then that is something which is kind of where I need to see what I can do.
How does so because sometimes situations also come with like a lot of uncertainty, right? And sometimes not both parties are very comfortable with it. So in those situations, how will one be able to navigate through it?
Um, okay, so when both the parties are not on the same page, right? When both the parties are not on a same ground, similar ground of the relationship. Maybe one want, maybe the one does not want, right? I think over there to who does not want or who want. First, the communication should be up to the mark. Having a transparent communication on your needs, your desires, what you want, what you do not want is something that is very important, right? If you feel so that my wants and my desires are getting fulfilled, and I don't need to, over here again the point come across, I don't need to put a lot of thought, I don't need to put a lot of difficulty towards my own self to adjust, right? Then go ahead with the relationship. But if you feel that you need to adjust from 0 to 10, then think about it.
Is there anything else that I might have missed out on that you'd like to address or something?
Uh, Definitely, yes. That see, there's a lot of pointers which come across in that way, right? There's a lot of the things which you are talking about, right? Is something going in a this or that way, right? But at the individual level, there's a lot of things which also important, which also takes a lot of importance, which is something which we need to consider also, right? The person own self, the relationship with your own self, the childhood, right? There's a lot of things that one person, if they want to come across in one relationship, why so then? What are their expectations also from the relationship, what they feel like I also get this from my relationship, right? So there's a lot of things which have like a little small if and buts over here. But yes, what I do want to convey it over here is that if you do feel like that you can able to manage, go ahead. But at any point of time you feel like that this is hampering me, this is disturbing me, this is disturbing my own well-being and my own sanity and my own peace, then go for a professional help or to have a communicate with your partner in a very transparent manner.
100% agree. Yeah. We are coming towards the end of the episode, so I just wanted to ask, where can the listeners find you?
Okay, so now where they can find me is basically or either on my email ID, which is Netra Bhatia003 @gmail.com, or else on Instagram, which is therapy by _ Netra.
All right, perfect. I'll be linking everything down below. Thank you so much, Netra, for being here. It was a blast talking to you about relationships, FOMO, and everything that this generation deals with. It was an amazing conversation, and thank you so much for your time and energy to be here with us today.
Thank you so much, Avantika, for having me, and definitely the lovely time I had with you.
And thank you so much for everyone who stuck to the end. I hope you derived a lot of value from it. And yeah, please do reach out to Netra for any questions. She has her own private clinic as well. She has her own private clinic as well. And yeah, follow us on Instagram, beautifulyou.pod, and stay tuned for the next episodes. We have a lot of mental health professionals coming up moving forward. So we'll be touching up on a lot of different aspects of mental well-being. Thank you so much for being here. And take care and see you next episode. Bye.